Hello, everyone. Now, I know that I said I'd only do one of these if people requested it, but I just wanted to do more of these because, they're really fun to do. And also, it's my YouTube channel, and I can do whatever I want as long as it's not hurting other people. So, I have decided to do exactly this. Yeah, it's a reading of the second short story in the Nedia series, and I hope you enjoy it. Without further ado, here is Nedia 2. Nedia was strapped to a rock, making gurgling sounds as a scorpion stabbed him. He was looking at a brick wall, which had an overhang with one dusty, loose brick right above him, hanging by a literal thread. He was surrounded by a lava moat filled with spikes that broke through the surface, but somehow, despite all of this, he was still alive. Eventually, Nedia grew tired of this, broke one arm out of the ropes, and threw the scorpion into the 1200 degree Celsius molten metal. He walked across the spikes, the points digging into his feet and causing them to bleed, but the heat instantly cauterized the wounds inflicted. And when he got to the exit, he crawled into the line of sight of the AFAM, a silent for arrogant minds, guard, and made his way to freedom, giggling along the way. The guard looked at the floor and saw Nedia. It was kind of hard not to notice him because his giggling was louder than the noise coming from the screeching thing in the vent. He tried to reason for the guard, saying he had a greatness program the guard could sign up for, but it didn't work, and Nedia instead ran. He was chased for a long time until he found something to weave into and slide out of the building. He came outside and immediately hissed. He had not seen the sun in such a long time, and looking at it blinded him. Nedia wasn't really a vampire, he was just an annoying human. He walked out and saw a crowd of people. He ran over, waving his arms and shouting, "Look at me! Look at me!" Soon, the people learned to look at him, and saw a man that looked like he had been in prison for the last, 20 years at least. When he got close, he said, "Do you know me?" The crowd looked confused, and they all said, "No, we don't know you. Who even are you?" Which Nedia did not take kindly, and then he proceeded to slap one of them, which caused Nedia's own hand to fall off before it grew back. He then walked along and stole some clothes from a store. Actually, he didn't steal them. He picked them up and underpaid for them with 2 chocolate coins. But, I guess the chocolate economy is just really bad in Nedia, so I don't know. Anyways, he put on the clothes in a back alley, which was a red shirt with a logo printed on it, blue jeans, and a purple cap. He also got some yellow socks and bright green golf shoes. He noticed a policeman in the entrance of the alley, and Nedia, who saw this before the cops walked in, ducked and hid on the wrong side of a dumpster. The policeman ran after him, but Nedia ran into an alleyway where the police literally physically could not follow him because it was just a bunch of balconies everywhere, and Nedia is a lot more nimble, having been in prison for the last 20 years. Anyways, Nedia eventually came across some light and found his way onto the streets. Nedia walked through the crowds of people, relishing the looks of disgust and confusion, while people looked at him saying, those colors don't go well together at all. They're not even, in the right rainbow order. But eventually, Nedia walked for some more time for a hotel to stay at, thinking about what to say to the bellhop about his daring escape. And then he came across a hotel and walked in. He paid for his room with loose change he found under his couch, which summed up to almost 1 cent, and then sat on the bed and read for a bit when he got to his room. He was reading a book on how to be smarter, but he was holding the book upside down. He walked over to a phone and called in a pizza. He asked specifically for grilled bananas on caramel sauce, served with a side of grilled onions and Mentos dipped in carbonation. When it came, he collected it without tipping the person who delivered it. He went and turned on the television and watched a show about how people, complain about everything, except they were complaining about that, so it was kind of ironic. Then Nedia went outside to burp, but saw a plane in the sky. Little did Nedia know that by some horrible coincidence and plot twist, a meteorite was coming down upon the world, while a plane got hit by the breaking off shrapnel and started burning up. Coming down at terminal velocity, it hit the Earth and exploded, causing an earthquake. A lightning bolt, meteor, and tsunami were converging on the same place, the hotel Nedia was staying at. High up in the sky, 3 glowing signatures appeared. They were wearing masks that each bore a different eye formation along with dark gray-blue cloaks. The first one, the Watcher, had a single eye in the middle of their head. The Teacher, or the second, had 2 normal eyes with 1 eye above each normal eye. And the last one, the Beast, had 6 eyes, 3 on each side. They were watching as the world screamed in terror, though it was not being hurt in any really meaningful way, since the destructive objects were actually just completely intangible. However, they became intangible as soon as they hit the hotel. Nedia was understandably confused, and he looked around only to see a bunch of superheated particles blasting themselves into the sky, causing a rain of superheated plasma to fall back down. He fell and briefly experienced some negative effects from the surrounding sun. He fell through the volcano of discharged lightning and eventually came face to face with one of the people who launched the attack. He stood ready and picked up a knife that had also evaporated into plasma. I don't even know how it managed to stay around for that long, but here we are, I guess. Anyways, the plasma storm hadn't actually settled yet, and the Watchers stood ready. They leaned forward and summoned 2 star shields. The teacher soon appeared behind Nedia and drew up 2 ethereal tentacles from the ground. The beast appeared to the right of him and summoned a glowing ball of energy, presumably meant to fire a laser. Nedia stood there, just spinning his, still disintegrating knife, saying, "Okay, so, are we gonna, fight, or what?" The particles were still falling. Then suddenly, every adversary worthy to survive the rain of violently exploding matter let out their attacks all in unison. Nedia backflipped into a star shield, which hit him into a tentacle, which hit him into a laser fired by the light ball. He fell to the ground, his hat discarded and covered in soot. He attempted to throw some rocks at the teacher, but it missed and was sent into a plasmatic tentacle unintentionally launched by the eruption of lightning. However, the rocks then just kind of became part of the storm of plasma, because, plasma. Anyways, the Watcher's eye glowed with shining shade of silver, which summoned a star shield of the same color. It flew into Nedia like a frisbee, who caught it and held it up victoriously. The teacher then quickly shot a fireball at him, sending him into downtown. The opponents, who Nedia had dubbed the Masked Ones, were dashing towards him. The beast was flying close to the ground, with the field of raw power crushing the ground beneath them, making a deep ditch. The beast then fired 7 lightning bolts from its mask, shocking Nedia, literally, and then being used as tentacles to force him into the sky. However, the beast involuntarily let go, leaving Nedia to free fall from literally miles above the Earth's surface. The beast then summoned an ethereal arm to slam Nedia back into the ground, because, they're currently trying to kill him and all. Nedia, preparing to go on the offense, grabbed a rock and threw it 5 inches in front of himself. The Masked Ones, currently chasing him for unknown reasons, reflectively observed the rock that he threw, asking as to whether or not Nedia can survive. It's unclear as to what they were, asking if you can survive, but it was probably something major. The beast immediately hit Nedia with a boulder the size of a car, evidently ready to show him the real way to throw a rock. He was unconscious for about 5 seconds, and when he got back up, he was hit by another boulder, knocking him at the speed of 90 miles per hour into a building. The boulder eventually fell off of Nedia's body, and when he fell onto the ground, he got up and resumed the fight. Nedia threw another rock that went a decent amount of distance forwards, but it sailed backwards and hit himself in the face. After the Masked Ones were reveling in the irony of such a dumb occurrence of someone being so weak that the projectile they threw travels a deficit amount of distance, Nedia still remained condescending and arrogant, saying, "I am still the greatest of the great, you weaklings!" What should have been the end of the fight was what triggered the beast on a scale that was literally universal. The beast fired a multicolor and multi-beam laser that stemmed from various locations, with colors of light blue, red, green, orange, purple, and yellow spiraling outwards from the glowing walls of origin, all cascading downwards onto one location, which was Nedia's abdomen. He fainted for the 2nd time in a single minute, but didn't wake up. He was transported to a weird dimension where a missile to face screaming in Spanish was flying towards Nedia. However, he hadn't seen it, and got hit by it and was sent onto another floating cliff. He stood on the edge, and then a pink Russian bush came by and spoke some strange language that sounded exactly like Russian, saying that Nedia was about to go to the land where they consumed drugs. Then Nedia was poked off the cliff and flew into a cascade of colors that made him dizzy. When he reached the bottom, he felt some weird hard snow that when he got up was actually dead skin. It felt and tasted like rocks and smelly feet. He then saw a Portuguese fairy pirate, who looked at him and said, "Hey, you're back!" Nedia was confused, and then he realized that he was in the strange dimension from last time. He threw some skin snow onto the ground, and then got body slammed by an oncoming French steam locomotive. When he got out of the train's charge, he was faced by a purple polka-dotted winged giraffe singing the Soviet anthem. When the giraffe noticed him, he said, "Hello, my fellow compadre. What are you doing in this fine day? I would like to inform you that we have a zero-tolerance policy for drunk driving. Did you hear that, Flurgampy?" The giraffe shouted, while staring at the locomotive, who turned and said, "Okay, boomer, I smoked 8 tons of tequila." The giraffe just ignored what he said, and turned and said, "Hello, whoever you are. My name is Gerald, sorry not to say before. I have a bit of a social issue when it comes to interacting with people, and that's the sense that I don't usually tell them my name immediately." However, Nedia interrupted Gerald before he could finish his last word by saying, "Stop whatever you are doing, Gerald! Are you saying that you do not know the great Nedia? I will have you talked at! Now you look nice enough that I will not kill you, but I will have you know that Nedia is the greatest of the great! Now is there a bar with which I can chill with you at?" Nedia said, cutting off poor Gerald. Gerald pointed to a bar called the Soup Shack that, despite their name, had cheese sticks of all sorts, and some good accordion music coming from inside that would usually be played by a fiery traveling circus. He bragged at Gerald while walking towards the bar. When they sat down, Gerald began explaining, Gerald ordered a triple fried chicken wing basket, a juicy steamed medium rare steak, 3 feet across, and a great fromage, which is the largest cheese basket on the house. Nedia, on the other hand, ordered an extra spicy butter-fried pizza with a cup of liquid lard. When they got the food, they continued talking about their hopes for the future. Gerald wanted to become a pilot and fly around the world, while Nedia was pretending to listen, just really eyeing the cheese basket. He said at the end, "Wow, I never knew someone could have such amazing goals." Gerald responded with, "Really? No one ever says that to me. They always just insult my ambitions." Nedia then went on lying and bragging about everything that he'd done, but funnily enough, he wasn't actually lying, technically, but we'll get more into that in later stories. While Gerald was eating his food. When they were all done, Gerald then ordered some more delicious food. While they ate, Nedia was completely oblivious to the masked ones, who entered the diner for some drinks and a plate or two. The watcher ordered a plate of pasta bolognese with parmesan and a non-alcoholic strawberry daiquiri. The teacher ordered two soft Parmesan tacos and a drink of fruit punch, and the beast ordered some chicken Parmesan and a drink of iced tea. I just realized everything there involved Parmesan cheese in some sense. Anyways, one of them noticed Nedia, and then they became aware of him, but they didn't make a scene. They didn't really need to do so here and now, where they might accidentally kill some people they didn't mean to kill. Once Nedia was finished his meal, however, he walked outside to find a way out of the pit. However, the masked ones were then realized that was their chance. So once Nedia got 100 meters away from the restaurant, they attacked. Nedia ran away, hoping to get out of shooting range of one of their projectiles. The beast fired a laser beam that easily reached him, even though it was really only moving 4 inches per second. And it knocked Nedia over, causing his clothing to begin smoldering. The teacher then decided to come in and electrocute Nedia, and while doing that, the watcher flew in and fired an ethereal sword at him. They were all attacking, and then Nedia realized that there was a shield that had entered his magnetic field and had started flowing around him. He then started being shot at by some explosive seeds coming from the inside of the shields. While he was being destroyed, the Watcher used this opportunity to summon several more shields. Then he got really happy when his shield dissipated, finally, but then he turned around and was smashed back and forth by several incoming weapons, also including ethereal swords. He was then sent flying by a geyser conjured up by both the beast and the teacher. He was knocked out of the pit, where he saw the pink Russian bush running towards him again, who saying something like, "Why did you not die? I wanted you to die." Nedia grabbed it by the head and tossed it over the ledge with enough force to launch the fairy pirate away too. Once the shrub flew far enough away over the ledge, though, it was incinerated by a laser beam and was knocked unconscious back on the ledge. Nedia ran away, nervous the masked ones were going to find him, until he fell into a pool of gasoline. However, Nedia realized that he forgot to put out its clothing, and the fire began making its way to the pool of gasoline, and eventually did. He was consumed by flames and woke up. Nedia was standing in the city. He didn't really know what happened, but it sure was odd. When he got up, he noticed the hotel still wasn't there anymore, and was firing a superheated plasma cannon into the exosphere. Moments later, Nedia was captured by an AFAM employee, who saw him get up, and then he was dragged back to the prison kicking and screaming, where he was in the exact same situation. He noticed someone who looked like him get up and leave the prison undetected. He thought for a moment about what he saw. Nedia let out a sigh while being stabbed more times, and eventually just kind of gave up. Then, part of the glass dome ceiling gave out, and he saw the Watcher with a glowing orb spinning around them. The Watcher fired a laser at the Scorpion, which caused Nedia to try to run out of the prison and onto the streets. However, he only made it out of the ropes when the teacher also appeared, but Nedia, confidently, said this while that one music from JoJo started playing. "No, this isn't gonna be the last time, buddy. You ain't gonna destroy this hotel or almost kill me, because I am the great Nedia!" The beast then quickly appeared behind him, who turned it through a rock at the mask. However, it traveled 2 centimeters before it fell into the lava. The beast threw 5 boulders in tandem at Nedia, who jumped on one only to get slammed by another and then flying into the ceiling, causing him to knock the brick onto his crotch. He let out a horrible scream that made the guard's eardrums simultaneously explode. He fell out onto one of the spikes in the lava, and made an even louder scream that caused the glass to break. Nedia swallowed some glass, and some fell on his chest. He kept screaming even louder, which caused the lava to ripple, pile up in one area, but then he messed up and took a break to inhale. It pulled the lava towards him, causing Nedia to be engulfed by the oncoming molten metal, and the masked ones just said, I honestly don't understand how someone could be this bad at living. We aren't even doing anything. This is like those Luigi wins by doing absolutely nothing videos, but in reverse. How could he be so weak? Meanwhile, Nedia was now screaming even louder than before, and eventually, the lava kind of stopped. It had been blown away by the screaming, but then he kind of catapulted himself out of the building, stubbing his toe on the way out, and then coming into contact with an air of a very different temperature, causing him to break the sound barrier by doing nothing but screaming. The momentum of his scream carried him to new heights, while being the loudest thing, natural or man-made, to ever exist. He came across a speaker shop which had an actual working microphone connected to some speakers. It was the strongest in the world, and he yelled into it. The microphone amplified the sound to an incredible degree, which almost nearly blew up the entire planet. And while Nedia was still flying, he stubbed his toe on an airplane that somehow was completely fine and bonked his head on the glass. He then completely destroyed that airplane as well, just by screaming some more. Then he screamed into a sound-powered battery that was for some reason falling from orbit, which caused that to get completely destroyed. However, Nedia then fell to the edge of the world, where he came into contact with a volcano. And the hole in the volcano went seemingly forever, and Nedia fell into the chasm, stubbing his toe on the way in, again. However, at this point, Nedia's scream had actually become completely inaudible, because it had reached 83 quadrillion hertz. Seismometers felt earthquakes that actually exceeded the magnitude required to destroy the entire Earth, because I will repeat, Nedia kind of destroyed the planet. He fell for 10 minutes, and in that time, the beast came and fired concentrated light at Nedia, which caused him to be slightly unconscious for a second. When he woke up, though, he had already fallen into the stratosphere from another unfamiliar universe. When he woke up, he was much more weak and dumber than before. He went for the schoolhouse, but he miscalculated where to land, and his head landed on the bricks. He heard a very, very loud snap. Nedia, with his head ringing, tried to run through the rubble, but tripped and had his crotch land on a border of a thick rock poster for the Nutcracker, causing his nuts to almost burst in half. Ha ha ha, how juvenile, said Nedia, trudging through the school grounds. He saw the teacher target him with a thin red laser pointer, before firing a small red bolt of concentrated energy. Nedia kind of frantically felt his chest, because nothing had actually happened yet. However, then, suddenly, a massive explosion occurred right in front of him, causing him to fly back into the bell, getting his head stuck in the metal and denting it badly. He pulled his head out of the bell and found the beast charging a large solar flare. Nedia tried to uplift the beast's mood, but then he was launched sky high by the sudden coronal mass ejection. The beast then created a massive sword out of thin air, literally, and slashed it into Nedia, who tried to hold back the sword but was unsuccessful and was sent spiraling downwards into the cornfields. The dragon, from Nedia 1, suddenly just came into view and fired a fireball at the masked ones, but the Watcher's eye glue and sealed the dragon with ethereal chains forward from glowing blue orbs. When Nedia hit the ground, however, he noticed the corn, which likes to spontaneously combust, was ripe and ready to be thrown. However, Nedia didn't even manage to throw it more than a molecule's width in front of him before it blew up in his face. Some explosive bubbles flew around him, and the Watcher summoned an ethereal needle and popped them. His face nearly exploded. Everything was lost. Nedia did not know what to do. He had almost completely destroyed the world he came from while screaming, and now he was trying to wait for his face to regenerate. But then, a portal opened in the sky. Nedia was confused. I mean, who would really be coming for him? There was no one he really knew who could actually help. And even if they did, or even if anyone did come, they probably wouldn't be able to survive the corn. However, Nedia heard some familiar shouting coming from inside. It was his shouting. Billions of other Nedias suddenly came descending from the sky, saying something like, "Help the original! Help the original! Help the original! Help the original!" Nedia then realized what the AFAM Asylum was. It was a prison made to contain several ones of themselves. Turns out, Apham only actually needed a glass pane to keep him in, because when he touches it, and he hasn't been given any form of attention for 10 seconds, he simply turns to dust. The masked ones stood still, not having an inch of concern on their faces. Nedia was amazed. Whatever he did, there was always another one of himself. This means that he could be even more great. The other Nedias came down, some falling and splattering viscera and entrails everywhere. But the ones who did land on the mountains of exploded Nedias slid off of them harmlessly, and fought valiantly against corn. The masked ones used psychokinesis to pick up and throw corn at incredible distances. Thanks to the corn's fast regrowth, they were able to have basically unlimited artillery. Most of the Nedias exploded into innards and goo, sure, but some didn't, because they were taken out by sudden spikes that formed from the rubble of the schoolyard, impaling them through every bone you could think of, and also understandably killing them. There were even some spikes that were just sent flying, and then the masked ones used them to intercept the corn in midair and have them explode, allowing them to hit the flying Nedias. Because the Nedia's only method of defense, by the way, were jumping like oversized fleas with a sugar overload. However, then the beast realized that, oh right, I can strengthen gravity. So then the beast did exactly that and made most of them start exploding. Eventually, the masked ones brought an army of their own, just to make the fight go faster than it was already going, saying, I think one beetle would be enough to kill this entire army, but why not 12 million human-sized beetles? Then a portal opened up behind them, and millions of strange beetle-esque life forms ambled out of the portal and onto the battlefield. There were many different types, some even having wings and horns on their head. There were some with swords and shields, and others had lances and could fly. Some even matched the jumps of the other Nedias, and some just ran through them all and hoped for the best, exploding at the same time. The fight wasn't going so well, because, the beetles. Until another portal opened up, and some locomotive sounds came out. Florgamfi, the Russian Bush, the Portuguese ferry pirate, who's, by the way, his name is Captain Giahado the Jolly and Insane, and Gerald all came out to fight. Gerald flew up and gave his best dragon impression and fired a massive wave of fire at the masked ones, who simply blocked it and then grounded Gerald. Florgamfi came in and wasn't really sure whose side he was on, so he ran around, knocking over the other Nedias and beetles, hoping for the best. Jihado was firing his pixie pistols, which blew up some of the corn and hit some of the odd beetles, but could only hold them back for so long, and it was just eventually sent flying to the ground by a jumping one. The Russian Bush was talking to some of the sworded and shielded beetles, who smacked him so far and so fast that he broke the sound barrier and took out Florgamfi in about 80 Nedias. Gerald said, "Florgamfi, no!" and ran towards the locomotive, and Florgamfi said, "Boomer, I smoked too much tequila. I deserve to die alive and awake." Gerald said, "But no, you can't die. You're literally the only method of transportation around there," said Gerald. Then Florgamfi said, "I see. At least go back and there's no harm come to you," said Florgamfi, opening up a portal. Gerald walked in, his head low, because he had kind of had to have his head low, and uttered a final goodbye to the original Nedia and Florgamfi, who said, "Au revoir, mes amis." Nedia, full of sorrow and maybe not regret, ran towards the masked ones at full speed. Strange beetles kept attacking, but one ran into him and sent him back 3 meters because of the two forces colliding. There was another, much bulkier beetle that noticed him and sent his horn-looking club into the ground and sent out a shockwave so strong it hit him and sent him into the back of an exploding beetle, who exploded it and sent him into the backdash of a winged lance beetle. He eventually learned that the beetles were not going to die so easily, and the fight may take some time. However, while Nedia was expecting the fight to maybe go by quickly, he never expected it would only take 10 seconds. After 10 seconds of dreadful fighting, all the other Nedias were dead, and the beetles had returned home. Florgamfi was dead, and Nedia and the masked ones were the only ones left. Nedia fell to the ground, pleading for his life. "I surrender! I surrender! Just let this fight be over, and everyone can return to their homes!" The masked ones looked at each other, reflecting on the amazingly short battle, and simply summoned a portal to another universe. Jump in and see where we go. Nedia then said, how do I know you aren't sending me to prison? Because that's kind of your whole prerogative right now. The masked ones took him and cast him into the portal. They went in too. Him and the others ended up in a less ruined version of the battlefield they fought at, or, in other words, the other Nedia's home. Stay here, and they won't find you. Wait, who's they? Said Nedia. AFAM. We work for them and capture criminals, and then we kind of get rid of them by throwing them into the vacuum of space like a Mogus, said the masked ones. Nedia was confused and said, Wait, who are you people? And then the masked one said, You need to find that out for yourselves, while dissipating, leaving nothing behind. He went inside the house and found a package waiting for him. It was full of fresh foods from his dream realm, and it was from Gerald. The letter said, Hello, Nedia. Pleasure meeting you. Florgonthi is not actually Ted. He was revived as a temporarily sober man. Jif mas dakwakoi doki fiskus de It's a nightmare to pronounce, and even more of a nightmare to spell. Probably because, he was kind of key smashing the entire time he was writing his name. Anyways, take this food from the cheese stick bar. It's not going to spoil, because that's how salty it is. There's also a 25% off Soup Shack coupon, along with a $25 gift card for the same place. Pleasure talking to you, Nedia. Gerald. However, Nedia noticed something strange outside. He looked outside and saw nothing odd, but he turned around and saw another package that read, Look at the field behind you. The text looked like it was written in MS Paint, and actually no, it looked like Microsoft Word art. The drawing looked like MS Paint. He looked behind himself in the field and saw something unnerving. It was a large green thing, but it looked so weird. It looks like a toddler had designed it. However, Nedia then ran back into the house and closed the door. He then heard someone say, What are you doing in there, little buddy? Come over and play. Nedia felt scratching at the ground and saw some bright red eyes in the darkness in front of him as Opila Bird from Garten of Banban approached. The end. So yeah, that was the story. I think it's generally a better step up, like a significant step up in quality from the previous Nedia. I will be reading the third one, and the fourth one, and the fifth one once I finish it, and then the sixth one, and final one. The sixth one is the final one. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. I certainly enjoyed making it, and goodbye.